Oh, I'm just going to get straight to it. The Eagles, I'm going to address this right now because
I have them too high?
no, Eagles are too low, and it hurts.
Oh.
Thank you.
No, we don't need to do the
Yes.
Thank you, Greg.
Stop it, Wilds. Just listen. Like,
Wow. He really put you in your
I
place.
agree
when
with
you
you,
said,
Greg.
I mean, it depends on the week. Well, we're going to see this week because you got two teams above them in the Bengals and the 49ers that I believe should be below them. And the Eagles should rise above those teams. I understand it's not the standings.
No, I got you.
But when you look at their body of work, it's better than those two teams' body of work. And then you start to compare these teams and you start to identify, well, what is Nick talking about when he says, well, one side of the ball is special, the other side not so much. And I was assuming you were talking about their defense. So you know what I did? I said, let's look at their defense versus these other two teams' defense because we feel like the 49ers defense is great. We all know the Bengals defense is trash. But when you look at the Eagles defense, look, they're seventh in points per game allowed. Yards per game, they're ninth. They're better than the 49ers. You mean to tell me their defense is better than the 49ers
Courtesy
defense?
of Daniel Jones, friend.
I mean, look, hey, whatever it takes, Miles, whatever it
Play
takes.
who's on the
And then when you look at their rushing stats offensively, we know that they got weapons outside on the perimeter, but let's see who runs the ball better. Again, the Bengals, we don't look at them as a running team, but guess who we do look at as a running team? The 49ers. And where do you have them? Above the Eagles. Seventh in rushing yards per game, but the Eagles are second in yards per rush. They're seventh. Like, they're better. And then when you look at what they're starting to get back healthy, one team, I don't know if they're going to get back healthy.
Well, no,
Look,
that's
the
true.
reality of it is the Eagles are a better football team, and so I don't know why they're so low. They're going into the bye. They had 8 giveaways, which was something that we would talk about all along with Jalen Hurts.
And now they've cut it out.
Coming out of the bye, they haven't turned the ball over.
You know, they also still haven't scored in the first quarter. When I was talking about the different sides of the ball, you assumed I meant the Eagles defense. The Eagles defense, I think, is a little overstated by those stats. I have real questions about the Eagles offense as well and the Eagles quarterback play. And I also think the Eagles were hanging by a thread. And then they beat the Browns and then rolled the Giants, and now you're saying they're back. I don't think they're back.
Whoa.
It sounds like
Whoa.
It sounds like
I'm not
you're
even saying that they're back. I'm saying that they're better than those two teams that
right,
you have
but
above.
I think the Bengals are going to beat them this weekend. I think they are. It sounds like we know Greg Jennings' upset alert. You guys are on a little 2-game upset alert losing streak, so you better get it together. But Eagles +2 could be a good one for you. Listen, to be clear, I argued to the committee the Eagles might be a touch too high on this and was overruled.
Wow.
Listen, they're alongside. It's a bunch of 4-win teams.
Yeah.
The Seattle, Denver, Eagles, and Indy. They're all 4-win teams.
But they're 4-2, right? The Eagles. They have a better record.
Yes, the buys came at
Those are
different
4 and
times.
3.
Yes.
I agree with you, Greg. The Eagles are too low. And the Bears.
Okay, so let's talk about Eagles. Let me get back to the list right here. Okay. Let's talk Philadelphia Eagles. Like I said in the previous clip when I did the whole thing, Wilds is trying to say, oh, well, there was courtesy of Daniel Jones with the defense and stuff like that and some sacks. And it's like, okay. I mean, the 49ers were able to eat against the Jets, right? Like, that helps their stats. And the Bengals are knocking down all these great teams. I don't think so. So, if you want to nickel and dime and cherry pick some of the teams that the Eagles played, then you got to do it to everyone else. But also, the Eagles actually beat the Packers. They beat the Saints before they fell apart, right? I mean, that's the reality. The Saints were actually a decent team, and then they completely fell apart. I mean, they rolled the Cowboys, right? They dominated the Cowboys, and then unfortunately for the Saints, they started to come back down to earth a little bit, as well as have some injuries, which then, of course, Derek Carr really took them out and had them fall apart. But they were even hanging in there in the game with the Chiefs until Derek Carr went down. So make no mistake about it, it's not like the Saints were this complete scrub team, but they eventually, of course, unraveled. Now they're obviously, they've been eliminated, so to speak. And yeah, beating the Giants, I do not think is super impressive by no means, and neither are the Browns. Like, I am very, very consistent about that. But the reality is when you're starting to compare to some of these, when you're trying to really compare head to head, like in isolation, I look at the Philadelphia Eagles playing the Giants, and I'm like, there's only so much to learn from that in isolation. When trying to evaluate who are the Philadelphia Eagles. But when we're talking about trying to compare the Eagles to another team or any team for another team, then I'm going to be like, okay, well, who have the Bengals played? Who have the 49ers played, right? How have they looked? What is their injury status? What is going on with all of those teams? That's when to me, you start to get a little bit clearer of a picture. So this idea, right, that the 49ers are in somehow this great magical shape, like I don't think so. And same thing with the Bengals. No, I think the Bengals are a good team. I don't think that they're this bad team. So I'm not necessarily with Greg where I'm going to say put them above them, but I do think that they can at least be in the same tier, because I think the Eagles are potentially dangerous, right? I think I actually like that title or headline or whatever it is. I actually like that because we're still learning who the Eagles are. The Eagles looked really dangerous week 1. Yeah, they had some issues, but it was week 1. But their offense looked legit, ready to go. Jalen Hurts looked comfortable despite some turnovers. A.J. Brown balling out, Saquon balling out. Then they got injured. Then from that point forward, it was trying to figure stuff out, right? Then they lost some O-line, and it was just, and then it kind of unraveled a bit. But now that they regained and got some health, and I think to me what that shows is that the Eagles are not this super resilient, can win at all costs. They need AJ, they need Devontae, they need Saquon, they need a good O-line, and you got that, and I think they'll be able to do some damage. I really do. People keep assuming that this is the team that they were last year, and if that was the case, they would have lost to the Browns. They would have lost to the Giants. They wouldn't have won as convincingly as they did versus the Giants. So I do think that the Eagles are in really good shape. I'm not going to put them at the top, right? I'm not going to put them in a top 5 team here, but I'm definitely going to elevate them. I'm not going to put the Bears ahead of them right now. I'm not going to put the Steelers or the Bengals or the 49ers ahead of them right now. I'm going to put them in that group. I think what I said before is I'm gonna put the Minnesota Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings, the Ravens, and the Lions actually at the top, and then put the Kansas City Chiefs and the Bills one under them together. But although that will change with the Chiefs depending on how Hopkins looks, and then I'm okay with then bringing the essentially the Eagles back up to this party, and I would move the Bears down, and I would put at this point now the 49ers, the Bengals, the Eagles, the 49ers, the Bengals, the Steelers, the Packers, and the Texans all in this group right now in terms of what do we got, right? Like they can all potentially be really dangerous, right? Jordan Love and the Packers can be dangerous. CJ Stroud and the Texans can be dangerous. It is a question mark with the Steelers. Honestly, I'm still so on the fence because it's like, is it going to be Justin Fields? Is it going to be Russell Wilson? If Justin Fields there, I'm not very scared of that. If it's Russell Wilson and he's been able to kind of reignite who he was before, I think that can make a lot of sense, and that team could potentially be dangerous. If he kind of regresses or kind of proves to just not be that guy right now, then they're a lot less dangerous. I saw them go up against the Cowboys, but that was with Justin Fields, and significantly struggle. I do think the Bengals can be dangerous. I mean, you got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. That alone is very threatening. It just is. And again, the 49ers, they have so many injuries right now. It's really hard to make sense of who the 49ers are right now. I mean, it just is. Or when they get Christian McCaffrey back, when they get Debo back, Jennings, they're a mess right now from an injury perspective. So it's a little bit harder to kind of figure that all out. And that's the reality, honestly, with a lot of teams right now, is that it's just kind of like, okay, well, they played this team when they were injured, but then they played this team when they were healthy. So it's it's a little bit harder to make sense of it. But I'm definitely not putting the Eagles on the same tier as, say, the Broncos or the Colts, right? And I'm not going to just put the Bengals, the 49ers, and the Steelers ahead of them. I think at the minimum, they should be on the same level as them. And I'm not putting the Bears ahead of them either. And again, I don't think the Bears are this bad team at all. And then also, I didn't mention the Washington Commanders. I think the Washington Commanders are in a weird situation because Jaden Daniels went down as well. And so we're going to find out. I'll get a little bit better idea of who the Washington Commanders are against the Bears when they play each other. That will give me a little bit more clarity. Even if Jaden Daniels doesn't play, as long as Marcus Mariota isn't an absolute disaster and isn't coughing the ball up and just 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and just exhausting this Washington Commanders defense, I think you'll get a pretty decent idea. How good is the defense? Can this defense make a rookie quarterback be uncomfortable? It will clarify who the Washington Commanders are. If the Washington Commanders kind of get beat pretty good by the Bears, one, it probably shows that the Bears are pretty good, and two, it maybe says, hey, the Commanders really need someone like Jaden Daniels to really be able to keep control of this game and keep them in the game. So again, just another idea who the Commanders are. But it is funny to see Greg kind of go after Nick for all that. Nick wants the Eagles even lower, and in a later segment they had the whole kind of must-win thing, and Nick was like, I hope the Eagles lose. He straight up said, I hope the Eagles lose because it will prove that I'm right. And it's pretty funny when he puts it so bluntly like that, and how he wants them even lower, but that he was overruled. So I do wonder, because I assume when you're doing these tiers, it is hard. You do it with someone else, right? You do need someone to kind of bounce this stuff off. I always think about that, where like I could say, oh, you know what? I don't think the Broncos are that good, which is not true. But I'm saying I don't think the Broncos are that good, so I put them down. And then someone else is like, hey, but the Broncos have actually been doing this, and they just got back, so and so, and they really have had, over the last couple of weeks, they've had like the best offense, and the run game has been really good. And it's like, oh, you know what? That's a great point. I overlooked that. Let me move them up now, right? Like it's hard to just do it when you're 100% alone in isolation. Like it is helpful, which is why I read all these comments. There's times that like I'll say, hey, I think the Bengals should be at the bottom, and then like someone in the comments is like, hey, you know what, the Bengals should actually be lower because of this. And it's like, oh, you know what, that's such a good point. I didn't realize that 3 of their wins came from the Panthers, the Jags, and the Browns. You're right. I overlooked that in the moment. So I use the comment section to kind of bounce things off and not so much have a solidified, guaranteed, this is my thoughts, this is how I feel, and I'm making this video to show you this is ironclad, I will not change it, this is what it is, I have spoken. That's not the premise of any of my videos whatsoever. If anything, it's more about thinking out loud and working through it collectively and just having like a group conversation, so to speak, more than anything. But yeah, the Eagles versus the Bengals is going to be a great barometer game for many different reasons. And I think at the minimum, as long as the Eagles play really good and have a good game, they don't need to win in order to even be elevated or prove that they're worthy. Because if you do the math, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So right now they are top 16. So interesting, right? Pretty interesting. Right on the cusp of the playoffs. Right on the cusp of, where would that be? I guess how many AFC teams and NFC teams is that? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So yeah, right on that cusp, right there, of even making the playoffs. And if memory serves me correctly, Nick preseason had them missing the playoffs. 3rd in the division. I think he had the Cowboys winning, then the Commanders, then the Eagles, then I think the Giants, but I don't think anyone really cares about the Giants. So going to be interesting to see how these next few weeks unfold. Definitely a lot at stake for the Eagles. Their schedule should actually get pretty, a lot easier, especially as long as they remain healthy, and things could turn around quite quickly for the Philadelphia Eagles. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles and Greg talking about how they're too low? Too low. The Eagles are so low, it hurts. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.